Former New England Patriots wide receiver has announced his retirement. So the question on everybody's mind is he a Hall of Famer?
This is, like you said, man, this is probably the hottest topic out right now. I mean, this is popping more than the NFL draft, which I feel like is crazy. But when you look at Julian Edelman, you know, and I'm going to just go ahead and address the white elephant in the room. He's a small white guy. He's under 6 foot. And, I mean, he doesn't have a Pro Bowl. So everybody's going to look at that early on and say, okay, is he really the guy that we're going to have come into the Hall of Fame? Because, I mean, you look at Lynn Swann, like I mentioned, man, took him 14 years to get in there. You look at Steve Largent. I mean, I think he was the last receiver to make it back in, you know, the 90s or something, the last white receiver to actually make it to the NFL Hall of Fame. You know, one thing before we actually start digging into it is I don't feel like there's enough wide receivers in the Hall of Fame. I mean, you got obviously, you know, Santonio Holmes isn't in there. You know, Hines Ward still isn't in there. There's no Reggie Wayne. Like, you got a lot of guys that need to be in the Hall of Fame, and that's been some of, you know, the anticipation for wanting to put. I hear you twice. No, you're good, man. That's been a little bit of, you know, people are like, okay, if you put Julian in, then you're definitely going to have to put A, B, C, and D in. But I think it's really disrespectful to take the Hall of Fame away from a guy just because other people haven't made it. People are talking about Reggie Wayne, you know, Hines Ward, but didn't Hines Ward play with Big Ben, and didn't Reggie Wayne play with Peyton Manning? So don't sit there and down on Julian Edelman because he played with the GOAT. He went out there, performed when he had to, and overall, he's one of the greatest postseason receivers of all time. And I totally understand he wasn't big, physical, flashy. You know, he wasn't going to be your textbook receiver that's going to go out there and people think, oh, he's a wide receiver one. He's going to be a game changer because, like I said, no Pro Bowls. And the guy really wasn't a force per se in the regular season. But one thing I will give him is, let's not act like Tom Brady once Wes Welker left in 2012 that Julian Edelman was not his go-to guy. I mean, you look at all the clutch plays that Julian Edelman had to pull out. Every time it was, you know, you needed a third down or it was late in the game. If you're trailing, like, Julian Edelman was the guy to go to because, you know, Gronkowski's probably going to be doubled. Gronkowski's going to catch anything you throw at him. So when it came down to it, it was time for Julian to put the money where his mouth was. And overall, you look at how he's second in postseason yards, second in postseason catches, but he's also second in 100-yard games in the postseason. And a lot of people glaze over that, but the guy was a producer overall in the postseason. There's no question about it. Top 5 in Super Bowl catches, top 5 in Super Bowl yards, and the only player to have 20-plus catches in the postseason, and he's done it 3 times. Only player. No Jerry Rice, no Randy Moss, none of those. The only player ever to do that. And the big thing is, you look at the Super Bowls that he won, like Super Bowl 49, he had the catch against the Seahawks that ended up turning out to be the game winner, you know, with a little over 2 minutes left. And then also Super Bowl 51 against the Falcons. Everybody knows the catch that he had, saving it, basically keeping the Patriots comeback alive. But the biggest thing is when you look at the last Super Bowl the Patriots were in and when they won against the Rams, earning the Super Bowl MVP, he's only one of 7 wide receivers to ever earn that accolade. And I just think it's super disrespectful to take it away from a guy like Julian Edelman because you look at Tom Brady, we're all going to sit up here and put Tom Brady in the Hall of Fame first ballot, and I'm not calling for Edelman to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But if he was Brady's number 1 guy, he won 3 Super Bowls with Brady, got Brady 5 Pro Bowlers in that stretch of his career, how can he not be in the Hall of Fame? And another thing that really gets to me is, I understand that you've got these guys in the past, they haven't made it to the Hall of Fame and you think they deserve it. But when the eras are so different and you look at what Julian Edelman was actually asked, every time he was called on, he performed. Every time he was called on in the postseason, he performed. Every time he was called on in the regular season, I know he wasn't your guy that was going to blow you away with 12, 13, 1,400 yards, but he was that clutch guy. He's got 3 Super Bowls, and to sit here and take it away from him just because other guys haven't made it in, don't discount him because of what he did well enough. I mean, do you agree with me, man? The discount that everyone's trying to bring on Julian, it's honestly disturbing because we're just acting like he wasn't one of the greatest postseason wide receivers ever. It just makes no sense to me.
It's strange how people approach the Julian Edelman situation because whenever we talk about postseason and we talk about Hall of Famers, that is the measure. It's what you do in the playoffs. Exactly. It's like, oh, you were great in the regular season, but you never did anything in January or February, and that's where we dock you. He's one of those special situations where his body of work is basically all coming from the postseason.
Exactly.
And in the regular season, he does whatever you're asked of him. I mean, he came into the league and was sitting behind Wes Welker. Exactly. He was the replacement that walked in there to take over for him. But he did more than just play wide receiver. We talk about all the rest of these guys like, oh, he doesn't deserve it because there was a Hines Ward, there was a Torrey Holt, there was a Santonio Holmes, whoever else it is that you want to actually name that's not currently in the Hall of Fame just yet.
Yep.
What else did they do? Like Julian Edelman actually went out and played snaps as a DB. He ran back punts. He ran back kicks. His all-purpose yards, he's 3 yards shy of 10,000 all-purpose yards. You're only looking at his receiving stats. Yeah, receiving, he went for 68-22. All-purpose yards, he's right on the cusp of 10,000. He even passes. I mean, like, the dude he didn't throw that many, but for his career playing quarterback, because, you know, he was a quarterback when he came out of college, he's 6 for 6. At 100%, 128, 1 touchdown, 158.3 rating, and he has a fumble return for a touchdown. It's like he's done everything. The man threw touchdowns. He has rushing touchdowns, plenty of receiving touchdowns, punt return touchdowns, forced fumbles, tackles. Like, the dude will do anything that you ask him. I mean, his stats aren't bad when you start comparing him to other Hall of Famers with their all-purpose yards. Like, here's just a short list of folks that he's got more all-purpose yards than that are already in the Hall of Fame. Y'all remember Gale Sayers?
Of course.
Maybe Bob Hayes, Fred Biletnikoff, you know, the receiver guy that the award's named after. Terrell Davis, John Stallworth. Like, none of them have as many all-purpose yards as Julian Edelman. And that's just regular season. We didn't talk about the postseason. He already gave you where he sits in the postseason. Second in all-time receptions and yards, and it's actually not very close. Like, Jerry Rice has, 151. Edelman has 118. The next closest person that's active is Gronk, and he's only sitting at 93.
Yep.
And then you got Kelsey. Like, they're not going to catch him. I mean, Kelsey's probably the only one that has a chance to catch him. He's going to stay in second place in postseason receptions. Like, that's something that's not being moved. But even outside of that, he's 4th all-time in all-purpose yards in the playoffs.
Yep.
And really, that's only 4th just by a metric of they don't count passing yards in all-purpose. You know, he had the 1 touchdown pass against Baltimore in 2014.
Right.
With the, I think he threw that touchdown to Danny Amendola. That's who it was to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you add that one in, he's in 3rd because he's only in 4th by, 10 yards.
Right.
I think Franco Harris is ahead of him. He's got 11 yards on him. But just look at that list. I give you the top 7 all-purpose postseason players.
Yep.
Jerry Rice, Thurman Thomas, Franco Harris, Emmitt Smith, Marcus Allen, Tony Dorsett, all Hall of Famers. Julian Edelman is number 4 on this list. I mean, he does have an argument. I mean, he had 4 seasons where he finished in the top 10 in receptions.
Yep.
Another 4 where he was top 10 in yards per catch. He's the 2018 Super Bowl MVP. He is on 5 Super Bowl rosters. And mind you, of the 3 Super Bowl wins, those other 2, he didn't play in them.
Yep.
2011, he was on the team. He didn't play. They lost. 2017, he didn't play. And they lost. 2016, Gronk didn't play, but they won because Edelman did his thing in Super Bowl 51 against Atlanta.
Exactly.
So, like, when Edelman plays, they win. It's pretty much just like it's a fact. I mean, he's not a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. It could take him 10 years to get in.
Right.
But he definitely is worthy of this discussion. People acting like there's no way we should even fathom saying Julian Edelman in the Hall of Fame are really missing the boat on this.
Right.
Postseason success is where you're judged.
Exactly.
We had a similar conversation some months back, last year, when Eli Manning retired. I mean, Eli did make 4 Pro Bowls, but for the most part, Eli's career was extremely underwhelming outside of 2007 and 2011.
Yep.
He's got those 2 crazy playoff runs, took them through the playoffs. When they get in the postseason, Eli is money. 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He's probably actually going first ballot, and a lot of people feel some kind of way about that. But it's about what you do in the postseason.
Yep.
I don't understand how we discredit how good Julian Edelman actually is.
I agree with you, brother. Here's another thing, too. So people like to compare him. You know, you hear a lot of Jerry Rice, Julian Edelman. Here goes some Super Bowl averages for you guys that are, I think it's going to put it in perspective for a lot of people. We know the Super Bowl is where you have to play your best. You have to step up to the plate. You have to be that guy in that moment to take your team to victory. And like I said, all 3 Super Bowl rings that Julian Edelman has, he made plays in every single game. Julian Edelman's been in 5 Super Bowls, but he's won 3. In the 3 that he has won, 8 catches for 112, no touchdowns, but go figure, the Patriots were still winning it. Well, obviously, he had the 1 touchdown against Seattle. But then you look at Jerry Rice's Super Bowl averages. 8 catches as well for 147 yards, and he was averaging 2 touchdowns a Super Bowl. We know he had the couple with 3 touchdowns, and Jerry Rice absolutely erupted in just about every Super Bowl he was in. But the fact that he played, won one less Super Bowl and still has close to those averages, how can you not hold him up to say he at least deserves some sort of recognition? And going back to just the discredit of him, the game is so different. Like, look back when Jerry Rice played and look to Julian Edelman playing now. The league is so pass happy. The league is so quarterback protected, and the league is so offensively kicked up. You've got more games, like I said, more rules that are in place. So it's hard to really truly compare, okay, we're going to take Jerry Rice and Julian Edelman and try to hold them in the same conversation, because they're not. But they are in the same conversation when it comes to the postseason, and I think Julian Edelman needs his respect. I think it's absolutely mind-blowing that people think he doesn't even deserve to sniff the Hall of Fame, because when you think of the Hall of Fame, it's either what you did in the postseason when it mattered, or you were an absolute baller in the regular season, i.e. Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. For a bad team. Exactly, Larry Fitzgerald, guys of that nature. But are we going to discount him because he played with the GOAT? Like I said, Reggie Wayne, he had Peyton Manning. Hines Ward, obviously, he had Big Ben. And Torrey Holt had Kurt Warner for a few years. Like, let's not forget about that. If you're going to sit here and discount him, it just makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand it. Like I said, not first, second, or third. Like you said, it might take a decade for him to get in. But I think Julian Edelman deserves the nod, because look what the guy did in the postseason. I mean, there's really no further we can go with it, man. The guy was a baller when it truly mattered. And if that doesn't say anything to you, then honestly, I don't know what does.
He's been the most reliable weapon Brady's had for years. And I wouldn't be surprised if he came out of retirement and came back in to play for Tampa before Brady and him leave.
Go over there with a little mentoring to Scotty Miller, maybe try to keep AB on his P's and Q's. I get you, man. I totally feel you there. I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, but it doesn't make any sense to disrespect a dude like that.
Right.
Like, anyone who is able to do that and come up that big on such a regular basis, because he's the exact same reason why I don't know any Patriot fans who like Wes Welker. It is not like Wes Welker actually was bad. He put up crazy numbers for the time that he was with us.
Yeah.
But that was because he was the slot receiver to Randy.
Right.
He was open the whole game. I could have put up numbers. You got Randy who's running a 4.2 40 that's about to take off 70 yards downfield.
Yep.
This little crossing route going to be open every time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we needed his one catch the most, he dropped all of them.
Right. Something that Julian Edelman did not do. And another thing, like, the narrative having Brady in New England, if you drop just a couple passes, whether it's a big moment or not, Brady will shy away from you. Brady will immediately shy away from you. So that's another thing that speaks to Julian Edelman's consistency. He was extremely consistent, because if Brady doesn't trust you, he's not going to look your way. And the fact that he was the go-to guy in all the clutch moments, the situations where you had to get a third down, we got to score here, we got to make something happen. If it wasn't going to Gronk, it was going to Julian Edelman. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, Gronk was doubled, because the guy's a fridge on the field. Like, we know who Gronk is. Give the dude credit. He's got to be in. He doesn't have to be in the Hall of Fame, but the guy definitely deserves it. He deserves to be in Canton.
Yeah, I mean, for those arguing against it, y'all are like that. That's really just straight bias.
Sound the alarms. Buzzo alert.
It's got to be. It's like, man, come on, man. Like, you got to cut that dude some type of slack. It's disrespectful to act like as soon as he retired, everybody just went in. Like, oh, no way he's a Hall of Famer. It's like, yo, he literally just retired 5 minutes ago.
And he's already got more spice in the conversation.
Y'all are just trashing him.
Right.
It's totally unwarranted.
Yep. I think it's extremely disrespectful, because here's the thing. I personally believe that this was any other wide receiver in the same damn position, we would not be having this conversation. Like I said, I addressed the elephant in the room at the beginning. I'll go there again. I'm not trying to use race to drive everything, but he's a short, white wide receiver. He's not going to immediately look the part, and he's got no Pro Bowl, so you're immediately just going to want to toss him out. But dig into the guy's career, because what he truly did shows everything as to why he should be in Canton.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, even for the folks that are like, oh, it was just all Tom Brady, the most receiving yards Julian Edelman ever had in the game was 179, and you know when that was?
What is that?
Week 2 against the Seahawks with none other than Cam Newton as the quarterback. But they say it was all Tom.
Yeah, they say it was, wasn't it?
Little Edelman had the best game of his career numbers-wise,
right,
with Cam.
There you go. And that shows how reliable he is, because we're obviously not going to sit here and act like Cam Newton was any sort of force last year. Like, yeah, he had a good couple of weeks, but after the COVID and everything, we know that he fell off. But the fact that shows you a quarterback that's coming over and like, hey, I'll be your number one guy. I don't even know how you play, but I'll be here for you. I'll catch the passes for you. That shows how dedicated he is to the game, Julian Edelman.
Yeah, man. Y'all got to come up off of it. Julian Edelman for Hall of Fame, maybe in 10, 15 years. Because in 15 years, that would mean he actually waited 10 because he's not eligible now. Folks acting like we about to vote on him to go in August.
Sign him off.
It's not happening today.
It's up now. Happening now.
When the time comes, he should just definitely be discussed. And eventually, he should get in there.
Right. I'm there with you, brother. I'm right there with you.
It's crazy, man. Y'all leave that man alone. Mad because he beat your team.
That's what it is. We got a lot of them. We got some Falcons fans, some Seahawks fans, probably some Rams fans. It's all them. Yeah. All the teams that he did work on, that's the guys complaining about it. Just be honest. Go ahead, come out.
The whole AFC East.
Exactly. It's okay.
Pittsburgh.
Dolphins, Jets, Pittsburgh. It's fine. It's okay. Look, I'm a Saints fan. He's in my division now, so I'm putting up with what you had to. I get it. I get it. It's okay. You have to accept it. It's fine.